I'm Andy Caretto. I'm a photographer based in St. Louis, Missouri. I mostly shoot people, portraiture. I shoot a lot of weddings, some commercial work, but mostly portraiture. The project was to photograph modern agriculture in the Midwest, and what that entailed was me driving around to different farms throughout mostly Missouri and Illinois and capturing farmers doing what they do on a daily basis. That was anything from in the farm harvesting to sitting in their office, answering emails, paying bills, just very much a photojournalism style of just following them around and hanging out with them to get a real idea of who they are and what they do on a daily basis. I didn't know that much about the farming operations before starting the assignment. I grew up in a farm town, and I drove by countless farms and cornfields and bean fields growing up, and still do because I still live in the Midwest. I didn't know that much about the actual daily operations of it before starting the process. I think that urbanites might get a few things wrong about modern agriculture. The farms that I visited were almost all smaller, 2,000 or under acres of farmland. Definitely multiple generations of farmers in most of the families. These farmers, they live a pretty normal life and they're not out to make a ton of money. They're out to feed people and to help their communities. This is Gary from Auburn, Illinois. He's been a farmer for over 40 years. This is him in his home office. He starts most mornings online, answering emails. He's got the stock market up on the TV. He's checking the different stocks. Gary is on the ag board for Trump, and he will have to answer emails and go through different tax proposals and different documents along with the other members on the board. And then he sometimes has to fly out and go to different meetings. He's very involved and wants to make agriculture better. He wants to utilize the technologies that we have today to improve farming and just be able to, use less. This is Deb from Roseville, Illinois, and she is married to Ron. Between her and Ron and their son Michael, the three of them run their family farm in Roseville, Illinois. This is her out at one of the test plots. What she's doing to get an average and a general idea of how many beans and how the crop will produce is they'll just pull a stalk out of the ground and they'll count how many bean pods are on the stalk. I remember that they were pretty excited because this one, it produced quite a bit above average. I think they mentioned that the average was roughly 55 beans a stalk, and this one had a little bit over 80. This is Deb again and her husband, Ron, and then their son, Michael. I love this photo just because they're very much just hanging out. It was really neat to see how just relaxed and how they were enjoying each other and laughing, and how this was in the middle of a busy harvest season. They're harvesting silage to feed their cattle, and they weren't in a huge rush. They were working long hours and getting what they needed to get done, but still taking the time to touch base as a family and chit-chat. I really thought that was pretty neat to see because there aren't too many families that get to work together and spend time together daily like this, and so I thought that was pretty cool. This is Michael. I just like the photo here with Michael peeking his head in just to see how the cows are doing and checking in on them to make sure that they got enough food. This is a photo from Gary's farm in Auburn, Illinois, and this was, I think, one of the last trucks that they were filling up from this field. They were finishing up corn, and it was about mid-afternoon, around 1 or 2 o'clock. I like the perspective of being up on top of the back of the truck, looking out at the expanse of the huge cornfield. I don't remember how many acres this was, but it was a massive field, and you can see it just goes on for acres and acres. You can see all the corn's gone in the field, and then they're loading up this truck to head to the grain bin. This is Gary. He's standing in a cornfield, but he is observing the combine in the bean field going through one of its first or second passes. He's just taking a look to make sure that he likes what he sees as far as the height that the combine's set at, because you want to do the whole field at the same height. When I walk onto a farm in the Midwest, I feel like I see a lot of sky. You see the crops, you see the soil. Some of it's green along the edges or earlier in the season, but in this particular photo, you see a lot of golden colors. They had maybe an hour left of light. It was right at sunset when I went across to the other side of the field and just looked back at the huge field, and you can just see how much dust the combine turns up. I love just capturing this golden light at this time of the day, and like that the combine's basically a silhouette off in the distance, and that you can really just see a little sliver of the bean field, and then the rest is just the golden sky with the sun off in the distance. This is a photo of Bruce. This is right after I arrived. It was mid-morning, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and they were having a little bit of trouble with his combine. They actually had to have a mechanic come out, and he was working on it. They couldn't get it started, and so they were having issues with the battery just getting drained every night. What they were doing was trying to figure that out. As he was walking around in the field, he found an ear of corn. Each ear of corn is basically money signs for these farmers, and so he picked it up and threw it into the front of the combine, so then when they did get it started, it would get used. He was not willing to overlook anything on the ground and didn't want to waste this one ear of corn. This is the Hill Farm in Ottawa, Illinois. The Hill brothers, Luke and Tom, are there, and also my brother, Ben. Luke is the one that's in the pickup truck, and then Tom, he's the one holding the paper, and then my brother, Ben, is the one in the red hat that's petting the dog. He helps them out during harvest season. What they're doing is taking a look at some of the grafts that Tom had from last year's harvest. This is Tom and Ben on one of their grain bins. They walked up there to just take a look at all of the family farm, and you can see for a long ways up there, and Tom is pointing to one of the fields that they are going to be working in over the next few days, but then also he's talking to Ben about where they might want to put their new deer blind that they're working on. They do a lot of hunting together, and so they were talking about different stuff that they wanted to do the next day, and who was going to tackle what as far as driving the combine and the follow tractor and the cart and different things. I feel like a big part of the story of this photo is that Tom and Ben are good buddies and friends, and they're talking about fun stuff that they want to do when they finish this deer blind, and talking about hunting, but they're also still in work mode too, where they're talking about what they're going to do tomorrow and trying to figure out a game plan for tackling the tasks that entails. It was pretty neat to see how a lot of the farmers incorporated work and not leisure time, but family life, and then also fun things and different things like that. It was just very much more of a lifestyle where they work and they live and they do fun things, but it was all made one in a way. This is Sandy from Ottawa, Illinois, and she is in her new UTV vehicle. She's only had it for a few months. Before this, she was using a four-wheeler to do all of her morning chores and feed the horses. This UTV vehicle made her life a lot easier. Sandy told me a pretty incredible story about how her and her husband actually were able to get this farm. They bought this farm somewhere around 20, 25 years ago. When they were buying it, the price was a little too high for them. What she did was she wrote a handwritten letter to the seller stating that basically what she wanted to use the farm for and what her intentions were. And she grew up, she just loved growing up on the farm. She loved animals, she loved horses, she loved providing for the animals, but along with that, she loved and really wanted to foster kids. I guess it hit home with the seller, and the seller was able to drop the price of the property for her by $1,500 per acre. This is Sandy in one of their barns. She is on the phone with a family friend. I really like the perspective of this photo. She's kind of looking through this door with the early morning light coming in. She loves these animals and these horses that she takes care of, and she's very much just has a servant's heart and cares about so many other things besides herself, and just very much was evident the morning that I got to hang out with her. And This is the Rosengren farm, and Neil is the one squatting down, greasing the combine, and that is his dad standing right next to him, Randy. Neil grew up on this farm, and he moved away after school to be an engineer. He was telling me about how he enjoyed that for a time, but then really missed the life on the farm. He has 3 kids and really wanted to raise his family in a small town on a farm. He was definitely enjoying that. He was telling me about how his 14-year-old is raising their own pigs, and they were showing them at 4-H and going through the whole process of selling some and butchering some, and just how I feel like most 14-year-olds probably aren't doing anything along those lines. He really appreciated the hard work and the different ethics and all the other things that go into being a farmer, and he wanted to show his kids that. I think the characteristics that these farmers that I visited shared was that they were all very gracious, very welcoming. When I arrived, they were all just welcoming, and they would give me a glass of lemonade or ask me if I wanted something to drink. I was there just hanging out, documenting what they were doing, but they were going out of their way for me and making sure that I was comfortable. That was definitely a theme that I saw throughout all the farmers and what they were all about. I think that these farmers hope that my photos show them in a true and real light, and that people can see them as normal people that might be their friends, might be their family member, just very down to earth and good people that are wanting to help and make the world a better place. These farmers are utilizing all this technology that's changing and constantly being updated, but they still are holding on to these values that just seem to be very true from generation to generation from these farm families. And it was really cool to see how they changed what they needed to change to do their jobs better, but then they didn't change what they didn't need to change. They really held on to these good and true values.